those churches. You're one of those churches too as well.
Well, it's very kind of you to say, Robin.
I'm telling you the truth. It's a fact.
All right. So let's go ahead and begin with prayer. Shine within our hearts, loving Master, the pure light of your divine knowledge, and open the eyes of our minds to understand the message of your gospel. Instill in us also the reverence for your blessed commandments, that putting down all sinful desires, we pursue a spiritual life, thinking, doing all those things well pleasing to you. For you're blessed together, beginning with Father, and your all holy, good, life-creating Spirit, now and forever, into the ages of ages. Amen. All right. So
Is it left to right?
right to left.
Right to left. Right to left.
So last week we covered chapter 1 of John's first universal letter, and this week we're going to cover chapter 2. We're going to try to keep the evening class and the morning class kind of in tandem with each other, so that we don't get too outpaced between the two. So chapter 2 begins with the verse, "My little children, these things I write to you so that you may not sin." So in other words, St. John, in his first chapter, set up the dichotomy between light and darkness, between knowledge and ignorance, and life and death. And he is teaching these things to everyone in order that they can understand how not to sin. And the problem that we're encountering here because of the Gnostics is that people are trying to basically state that there is no sin, or there is different understandings of what is moral in society. And so St. John is trying to tell us that we have sin. Everyone has sin. But that's okay because we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. And he himself is the propitiation for our sins, and not for ours only, but also for the whole world. Which means that the salvation of Jesus Christ is not extended only to those who believe in him, but to the entirety of creation. This is one of the reasons why St. John says in his gospel that those that have done righteous will be resurrected to everlasting life, and those who have done evil to the resurrection of judgment. In other words, our immortality has been secured by Jesus Christ. How that immortality plays out is up to us. And this is important because if we understand what sin actually is, where it is the separation between man and God, the true reward for sin should be death and destruction. We should be smote from the earth, just utterly destroyed, but that hasn't happened because of the propitiation of Jesus Christ and his love for us. Now, by this, starting on verse 3, we know that we know him if we keep his commandments. He who says, "I know him," and does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. Now, what are the commandments? The commandments, of course, are the 10 Commandments, the Decalogue, but also a newer commandment that Jesus Christ gave us. What was Jesus Christ's new commandment? And John will go into a little bit.
To love your neighbor as yourself, as well as to love the Lord your God.
Exactly, to
Oh,
love your neighbor as yourself, as well as the Lord your God. And he wants us to love in the same way that he loved, that he himself was an expression of that love. And so he's asking us to do that. So in other words, if we don't follow the commandments of God, and Jesus Christ said that, he said, if you want to love me, you will follow my commandments. But if we don't follow his commandments, and we say we love God, well, then we're lying. If we say that we know God, but we don't follow his commandments, again, we are lying because we're living in ignorance. And we see this sometimes with modern theologians that almost say that I know Jesus Christ even better than I know myself. And this extreme ignorance is troubling to me because we don't know God. The reality is because of our sinful self, we just don't. But whoever keeps his word, truly the love of God is perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. He who says he abides in him ought himself also to walk just as he walked. So in other words, we are called to model our life after the life of Jesus Christ. That Jesus Christ was not just our God, not just our teacher, but our example. That he's an example for us on how we ought to live, how we ought to engage with our brothers and sisters. So he begins on verse 7 by saying, "Brethren, I write no new commandment to you, but an old commandment which you have had from the beginning. The old commandment is the word which you have heard from the beginning. Again, a new commandment I write to you." So, verse 7, he's looking at the Old Testament. He's looking at the original commandments of God, that this has not changed. It's not like when Jesus Christ came, suddenly everything before him is abrogated and gone. Those commandments are still present, the spirit of the law. But now he's telling us this new commandment, which thing is true in him and in you, because the darkness is passing away and the true light is already shining. So that new commandment isn't so much an order, isn't so much a law as it is a person. So what St. John is trying to get us to understand is to step away a little bit from the concept of ideas and understand that what we are talking about is the personification of these ideas in a single person. That Jesus Christ is the truth. Jesus Christ is the way. Jesus Christ is the life. That this is more than just conceptual ideas. He who says he is in the light and hates his brother is in darkness until now. And so what we're seeing here too is this idea of love versus darkness. In other words, Jesus Christ, who is the light, told us that if we love our brother, then we abide in him. If we hate our brother, if we judge our brother, then we are in darkness, and the light is not in us. So in other words, it's a lie. It's a deception. That we think we know what we're doing, but the reality is we just keep putting more and more darkness over our eyes so that we cannot see what we're doing, all the while thinking we know what we see. Verse 10. He who loves his brother abides in the light, and there is no cause for stumbling in him. Now, what does this mean? He who loves his brother abides in the light, and there is no cause for stumbling in him. Anybody?
Where did you get that last sentence? I didn't get that last sentence.
I'll read it again. He who loves his brother abides in the light, and there is no cause for stumbling in him.
No cause for stumbling, I don't understand that.
So when we are walking in darkness, it's very, very easy for us to trip. So if we have a room full of chairs and tables, and we cut off the lights, and there's no outside light, and we're telling someone to walk across the room, chances are they're going to bump into things. They're going to stumble. They're going to fall. And that's just the reality of darkness. Whereas if you turn on the light, or even give just a smidgen of light, suddenly you are able to navigate the room. You're able to get from point A to point B without falling down, without hurting yourself. Now, with spiritual life, it's not just tables and chairs that are the stumbling blocks for you, but pitfalls with tiger traps, death traps, essentially, for our soul. That is what the devil has laid out for us. And because we are walking in darkness, we don't know how to traverse it. And so when we hate our brother, we are essentially covering our eyes and taking steps forward thinking we know what we're doing, but we don't.
But you can't love somebody who's taken your soul from you. You can't love somebody who's removed your soul from you.
Who has taken...
My brother took my soul from me when I was 8 years old. He used it by calling on Satan for an hour. My stepmother slapped the living hell out of him for 10 minutes, and she couldn't stop him. Then my best friend, Jerry Dyer, who was an Afro-American, punched him in the face several times, and he was only in second grade, and he couldn't do that much. And 12 members of the projects told him to shut his mouth and stop calling on Satan.
No. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Father.